Hi, Craig Urquhart here, and welcome to another episode of Berlin Conversations. Today I'm very pleased to have with me um, an actor, singer, dancer, Samuel Schuermann. Did I get the umlaut right?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
Sounds pretty good. Thanks for having me. Thanks
Well,
for the
welcome.
invite.
I'm really glad you're here. And it's nice because we've gotten to know each other over quite a few years now in
Yes.
Berlin. Yeah,
Yes.
we first met through some mutual friends of mine.
Yeah.
And you were working on a Sondheim project at
Yeah,
that time.
that was my first album that I produced, and we talked about that, and we got in contact over this movie company, the friends of yours, and it's been some years.
Yeah. And what do you call yourself? Because you're so multi-talented. I want to be sure we get every base covered here.
Well, I like that you said like a dancer, singer, actor. It's what they taught us in university, that we are singing and dancing actors. There's another German word for it called musical Darsteller, which I don't like that much. And in I think in US and Great Britain you don't have this like musical actors, opera singers, actors. It's all just like being on stage. Could be like, you don't have to separate between the genres so much, and that's what I call myself.
And you've been working in the business quite a while now,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And you come from a musical family?
I come from a musical family, so from an artist family actually. My father was a sculptor before he became an opera singer.
I didn't know that.
Quite late. He always was very interested in music, and especially in opera. And he lived in Ireland. He's German, but he moved to Ireland with his first wife. And but since he's much older than my mom is, so he was there in the 50s, and he got to know people like Samuel Beckett, and was surrounded by artists, also by musicians. So he was always very interested in singing, and that would be another conversation, like how he then came back to Germany, and actually within his 40s, so my age now, he started to sing, to go to in Hamburg to school, and became an opera singer.
That's quite a journey, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's a bit the same with my mom. She started as a ballet dancer, so I always say she had the Christine Daae career from Phantom of the Opera. She was a ballet dancer in the corps de ballet, and she always went to the director and said, "I want to sing for you. Let me do an audition." And she did, and she became an opera singer overnight, and was doing all the big soprano roles. And that's how they then met in a production of Figaro's Hochzeit. So this is my family, musical family roots that, of course, are very important for my education, that I grew up surrounded by art and by music.
And you chose to do it because you love it, or?
Well, I wanted to become, and it was really planned to become a director for music theater, for opera. And I always thought that I'm too tall. I'm almost like 192, like almost 2 meters, and I thought I'm too tall to go on stage. But I was always interested. I danced, I sang. I had lessons, especially not with my father. That didn't work out.
That would never work. It never works.
And so I was always interested in like this dancing, singing, and acting. But I thought I will not go on stage. I will be probably behind the scenes or director. And then I always did chansons on the piano. So I was when I was 18, I did my first concerts in the theater in my hometown. And my father said one day, "Well, you're doing so well with this. There is a competition. Why would you like to compete?" And it's in Berlin. So that's how I came to Berlin the first time. And actually the University of the Art here, the UDK, the director from the Department for Musical Theater saw me, and I was also doing something from West Side Story actually, because they said it's not only chanson, it's also musical, and I was like, well, if it's musical, I should dance. So I had one song where I was not playing on the piano. I got up with my 18 years old and danced the whole scene of Kubel, which is quite hysterical to like do it alone. And but they saw it, and they saw something in me, and they asked me if I come to audition for the university. And my first question was, am I not too tall? And they said, well, Tommy Tune was 2 meters, and
that's true. Yeah.
And they said, you will probably not be in the chorus. Will be a soloist. And I said, well, I don't have a problem with that. And that's how it started. And then I moved to Berlin.
And you moved to Berlin because of the school.
Yeah.
But you stayed in Berlin.
I stayed in Berlin. I fell in love with the city.
Yeah, like
what you can relate to.
Yeah.
And it's a great city to live, and you're always surrounded by so many artists and interesting people, and there's so much going on. But actually, I work a lot like my parents did in the town theaters all over Germany.
The regional theaters.
Yeah, so we always have, every city has its theater with opera, ballet, and acting, a theater. So I'm always guesting there for musical productions, doing principal and leading roles.
And you've recorded quite a few albums, right?
Yes.
How many now?
I recorded 3. I started the first one, the Sondheim album, when I was 26. And yeah, it was. I was just out of university doing my first productions, and I loved the music and the lyrics from Sondheim, but everyone told me in Germany it's not really common.
That would be my question, because Sondheim isn't really performed here or
not often.
Known here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some friends. They just went to New York, and they saw "Merrily We Roll Along," and they couldn't make heads or tails out of it, you know, because it's just the witticisms, the rhymes, the wit is just very different than the way.
It's very different. It's also very difficult to translate, because his lyrics and the music, it's a little bit also like Cole Porter, but more with Sondheim, because the lyrics also transport the plot in the songs sometimes, and it's so difficult to translate it into German. But that's not only the reason, I think, that he's not that popular. Maybe that will change in the future.
I'm sure it will. But
they're doing a couple of productions. I also did once Into the Woods here in Germany, but it's still, people have this other idea of musical in Germany, and sometimes they get confused when they see, because you cannot say it's like a typical musical show when you're going to see a Sondheim show. It's very special, and
well, he created a genre of his own.
Of its own. Yeah. I've just been to London to see Old Friends, the show with Bernadette Peters, with all his shows in a concert or
a review, we'd call it,
together, and it's, you sit there and you once think again what kind, this music, the lyrics, the humor, it's so unique.
And this album you did you do it in translation, or did you?
Well, I did half because I thought it's nice in Germany to have also a translation where people can more get the story, get the lyrics, and so I decided to do it half in German and half in the original in English. And I also did a little bit of the translation that I changed some little things, which I afterwards got the information is not allowed in German. So I had to contact the original translator, and he gave me the okay to do it for this album. when you're 26, you don't
You
know
don't
about this stuff.
No,
you
of course not.
just want to do the album, and it was with a very good pianist, and we produced it here in Berlin, and it was a lot of fun to do, and I learned a lot, because also for a singer, when you're 26, it's different than now. Your voice is not developed like this. Your whole experience is not like this. But it was really special to really dive into all these shows that he did, and I put a little frame on the album from Sunday, so it starts with Sunday in the Park with George, and it ends with a song from that show, because this whole show is about the world, the eye of an artist, and it's about creativity and what happens when you lose your creativity, which all artists can relate to, that we sometimes have this phase where we think, what he says in the musical, I have nothing to say, and then you have to concentrate and to get everything back together to create. And
it's hard to say which is your favorite Sondheim musical, but I'm very partial to Sunday in the Park.
Yeah,
with George.
I think a lot of artists do, because we feel what he wanted to say, and what he you can really identify with everything in that show. And when I saw it was the finale of the first act in London, and it really got me. I was really emotional.
I still get emotional every time I see
much,
it.
Yeah.
And so you've done a lot of shows, right?
Yes.
And right now you're doing, well, I met you, soon after I met you, you started doing West Side Story.
Yes.
Right? And that was up, where was that? It was in Rostock?
In a couple of towns I did it. It was, of course, it's one of my, I think it's one of, if not to say, the best musical that is written for me. It's for the people watching it, but also on stage. It's so, the music really, and the whole plot, the libretto, is written so perfectly, so well, and it just takes you on a journey, and you just have to jump on, and then 2 hours.
So which role did you play?
Well, I started the first time I did action, so I was on the, which was fun, because you have all these great numbers like Cool and Officer Krupke in the second act, and then of course I did Bernardo 2 times, and I really loved also it's a show where when you learned dancing in school, that's a show where you really have to dance.
Well, it was originally conceived by Jerry Robbins, who was one of the greatest choreographers in the 20th century. So dance is so important in that show.
Yeah, and I really feel I'm grateful that in that age where, I mean, you have to be in your 20s or early 30s to you still have to be young to create these roles on stage, and I'm really grateful that I could do it in that time, and
And you're currently in another Bernstein production.
Yes.
In Münster.
Yes.
We call it. What are you doing?
So I'm doing the Celebrant in Mass.
In Bernstein's Mass.
Bernstein's Mass.
In the Münster Mass.
In the Münster Mass.
So, and how, that's a very different role than Bernardo, and how...
That is a different role from every role that I played, I have to say, because you have to be trained very... It's like an opera. You have to be trained in a classical way. Your voice has to you have to be able to do all that Bernstein wrote in this show, that someone said to me, it's like classical Italian baritone, but also the jazz and the blues that gets into the partiture and into that role, and also the acting, which really takes a lot, demands a lot of you on stage.
Well, you are pretty much the central figure in that in that production.
And it's interesting. It's not only that you're like, other leading roles where you do the whole show and you're always on and you're always singing and having the show numbers. There is a big part in that show where you just listen and where you're not singing at all. And that is very interesting because when you do it properly, and I talked about it with the director, and we had this vision that the celebrant is like, we're not sure if it's an original mass or if it's something that is going on in his head, and that all the voices from the people during that evening are in his head and his doubts and his fears. And so the listening is very active for me. I mean, always an actor should listen on stage. That's the main thing that you do as an actor. But here, to have all these difficult songs, to like sing them with the people who are singing it on stage inside you, like it's a very active form of listening. And then at the end, when he, in the number, things get broken, where he it's like insanity scene where he really destroys the altar, and where he jumps on the altar, and where everything breaks down. And that's where everything that he heard during that evening comes out, and where he repeats and sings and puts it together. And it's a very demanding, very heavy role to sing and to play. It was also, for a singer, I never did something like this where you just have to be very, very fit to perform that show.
And you've done quite a few productions already up in Munster, right?
No, that was actually my first.
No, I'm talking about this mass. This,
we have 12 shows.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And it's also interesting how it develops from show to show, and for everyone, it's very it's a hard show to play. Also for the musicians, half of the orchestra is running around on stage. They have their music on their elbows or on the instruments, and they have to. One main thing in the rehearsals were that they don't have enough light, so they were like walking around on stage, and they were like not used to be in spotlights or and sometimes I could not read their music, and but. It was really interesting to see how everyone on stage, there are also all these, I mean, there are so many people in the chorus, the children's chorus, it's a huge production. How everything gets together, and how everyone did their part, and also how people really had to go out of their comfort zone, what they're used to do in theater usually. And also very interesting to see how the audience react. But similar to Sondheim, people in Germany know Bernstein for West Side Story, I would say, on first place, and Candide maybe, and then him as a conductor, but or educator. But Mass is, because it's so big, and there are so many people involved, and you need so many guests, and a blues band, a rock band. I mean, you know,
it's a big production, and expensive.
And so, it's very expensive, and where you need the space, and most theaters are not playing it, so people don't know it. And we were really interested, how will the audience react? Because it's also, you cannot say it's a musical, or is it an opera, or is it an oratorium. It doesn't fit. Anyway, so people
only one person could have written it.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
and that's how people react to that evening. That is really interesting. Also, you were there at the opening night, and before that I was so nervous to how would they react? How would they see this? Will they get it? Will they be into it? And at every performance, people are so silent and so focused, and there's so much tension in the room, and then afterwards you see and hear how they enjoyed it, and what people say to me, that it's really like you need some time to realize what you just heard and saw. It's massive. it's a mess.
Yeah. No, it's great. And on the other side of the coin, you're doing another production of La Cage aux Folles.
Yes.
Yes. Those are two completely different roles.
Completely different. And that's what sometimes happens in Germany with all our so many theaters, that that you get a production very short notice, and that's what happened now with La Cage aux Folles. It happened to me this season 2 times that I got to do 2 parts that I wasn't planning on doing, so that they called me and someone got sick, and I had in spring I had to take over the lead in Me and My Girl, a production that I never did before, and I learned it, the whole part, and it's a huge part, in 2 days, with tap dancing and all the dialogues. And I really fell in love with the story and with this character. And then I opened a couple of days later with only 2 rehearsals. That was fun, but also very special. And yeah. And then the same happened with La Cage aux Folles. I did this role.
Which
10
character
years
are
ago,
you playing?
The lead, Albin Zaza.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I did it when I was 32, and I think I was the youngest Zaza in Germany ever. Mm-hmm. There was a director who wanted me for the part, and he had a very young cast, and he said it works out. If with all the makeup, it works out. And I loved working on that part. It's a very, very strong role to play. It's a very it's an amazing role, and I won my first theater award for that production. Mm-hmm. And now 10 years later, doing it again was also interesting to see how it developed, how you are when you get older with this part. And with this part, I can grow older with it. Mm-hmm. It's a part that you can also play when you're 50 or 60.
Mm-hmm. Right, of course, yeah.
And but to do it at the same time doing mass, well, the first reaction when they asked me was like, I don't think it will fit with my and I cannot sing it, like I cannot do it, and the next day mass, which is for my vocal cords a bit too difficult to do both, but it fitted perfectly in my schedule, and so I said yes, and it's a lot of fun to recreate and to work again on that part. But doing it at the same time with mass is also
well, they're two completely different worlds.
I had to post something online where I put 2 pictures together with the priest and the drag star, which is, I mean, this is what I also love about the job, that you and for me also, I'm not like always doing similar parts. The roles that I played are very different to each other. They're all very diverse, and so this is like, I mean, so different roles to do at the same time. It's a lot of fun. I mean, this is amazing to do in that job.
I admire anybody with that kind of talent who can get up there and do that. What other roles have you enjoyed doing?
Well, I also played the MC in Cabaret, another production that I really, really love, and also living in that house.
Well, let's talk about that.
We were neighbors.
We were neighbors on Nollendorfstrasse. And what's so special about Nollendorfstrasse?
Well, I moved into Nollendorfstrasse, I think 16 years ago already. And when I visited this apartment, I had no idea what kind of house this is. So the landlord said, well, this is the house where Cabaret happened, where Christopher Isherwood lived, 1 floor below. And I was like, okay, I want to have this apartment. Where can I sign? And it's really, I met Alan Cumming there once. Liza Minnelli was there to visit the apartment. It's a huge apartment where Sally Bowles and Christopher Isherwood, where they all lived, Fräulein Schneider, Fräulein Kost.
Like a rooming house.
Yes,
sort of,
yeah. And I have the apartment 1 stairs up, and it's an historic house, and you lived quite on the
I was
opposite. Like
just
we were
opposite.
neighbors.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's. But it must have been an inspiration for you.
Very
too,
much, it was an inspiration to. I mean, also to live in Berlin, to have this. That's how I fell in love with the city. I never wanted to move to Berlin when I started. I wanted to go to Hamburg, and I didn't thought that Berlin is a city that I would like. And then I came for this competition when I was 19 years old, and this history to touch, I always say, it's everywhere, and it's a very unique, very special city, and people either fell in love with it or they hate it, or both.
Yeah.
They live here and they hate and love it. And to have this background, to live in this city, of course, you also feel connected to the history, you feel connected to the world of the arts back then in the 20s. And it's also nowadays really like you think, oh my God, it's like we're living it again, it's happening
again.
Unfortunately, yeah. And really makes you think. And but this was everything, of course, an inspiration to do my first MC, and I'm really happy that I could do like the revival version, the Broadway revival version, where Alan Cumming was starring on Broadway.
Saw that production,
that version, and also the very old one with the big orchestra and ballet and chorus, and they have different numbers in the two productions. So I did the second one, the older one, I would say, in the opera in Leipzig, and was fun to do both. And I mean, so many productions and roles that came along the way. I have to say, all the roles that I wanted to play, that I dreamt of, I could do, and now I'm getting older, and after COVID, my first role that I came out after the long two years break was Petruchio, Fred Graham Petruchio in Kiss Me Kate. That was like another dream role, but you have to get older to play these roles. Yeah. So that was perfect timing to do this, and
Incredible. So you're working all the time, pretty much.
Well, you also have these breaks, like where you doubt everything, and where you think, oh my God, I have all this. Had these amazing productions now I don't know what comes next. And especially when you do leading roles, people always say, but you must be working all the time. But sometimes it is also a lot of luck that a director wants you for that part, or that a director takes you with him to or with her to a theater to play there, and that you get a chance to audition for a part. And I always think of when you have these doubts, or when everyone in our industry has it in between and knows it. I once saw an interview with Bette Midler, where they asked her, what did you do after this big success when you were young? And she was like, I couldn't get a job. And they were like, what? And it's like this. Sometimes there's, like right now, the theaters are not putting out the roles that would be interesting. And you also don't want to step back and do like roles that are not interesting for you, or that you. So sometimes there is like a period where nothing happens, where you're not getting the right connection, where you're not getting the production that you, and then all of a sudden you get everything at the same time. That's the way the artist life is, and that's the way how I'm learning to live it. It's a process where you also have to trust that this flow comes again, and that it's happening. And all the production, like Mass, I studied Mass 10 years ago for a production that was then cancelled completely because it was too expensive. And of course I was very upset and I just finished learning the whole thing, and I worked with incredible people on it, and then all of a sudden it's cancelled. And then 10 years later in Münster, it was also planned that they do it with a baritone from the house, because they have opera singers and then that didn't work out. And that's how, over the production team and over someone, they came to me and said, well, can you come next week and audition and do the whole fraction scene
God.
in an audition while I was doing this Me and My Girl thing where I learned all that stuff. So that was, I think I didn't sleep in that week. So just to learn.
I do remember you calling me. You were so nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really, I really wanted to do it, but I wanted to do it properly. So if I audition, I wanted to show them that I not only want to sing, or that I'm not able to sing that part, that I also want to play it and be that role. So I had to be really good prepared and know everything by heart. And that is like the fraction scene is 15 minutes straight singing, acting in Latin and in English, and it takes a lot from
and
you.
It's not like how do I say it? It's a little schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little all over the place, and there's not like a direct line.
No.
Yeah, so.
I read that he wrote that scene when they're already rehearsing the show, and then he called Alan Titus and said, come to my office or to my apartment and I show you the last scene that I wrote. And he was already rehearsing, and it was like, what? 15 minutes? And he sang it, I mean, with his scratchy voice, he sang the whole whole thing to him. And I think it was only possible to write it after finishing the whole show, because then you know how everything, it's the process that I talked about before, that he's listening the whole time, and then everything comes together in that scene. It's also when we rehearsed the production, people sometimes, like the chorus, when they came, I was just standing there, sometimes saying, let us pray,
right,
and listening, and they were like, what is this guy? He's the principal, but what is he doing here? And then one day we came to the end and we did fraction, and they all were like, oh, now everything makes sense. Now everything comes together. That's how he wrote it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So you've obviously read Alan Titus's remarks about it, or watched him talk about it.
I did a lot. I mean, we met, and in my preparation time for that production, and I also met with
you met Alan?
No, we both met and
yeah.
talked about it, and I met with a priest here in Berlin to get some information for my preparation for him. I always do a lot of preparation, but with this role I thought I have to be so prepared that I can focus on the main thing, and that the craft is, everything is there that I need for that role to be free in the rehearsal process.
I saw your first performance, and it was remarkable. Yeah,
Thank you.
It was really great. Yeah, and I was actually, like you were, amazed at how the audience reacted to the show, because Mass is all over the place, and there's different genres and everything, and they sat there in complete rapture, and then when it ended there was silence, and then it erupted, and it was really quite a remarkable evening. So I'm really glad to hear that it's still going well.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you have do you know of anything coming in the future? Or?
No, that's exactly what I was just talking about. Like, I'm still doing Mass and still doing La Cage, which are two. I mean, I also did this season. I did the lead in Sugar and Some Like It Hot, which was also fun to do. That. The Josephine part, when you did Zaza before, and then you have to play a character where someone is going into this women's clothes, but without knowing how to move in it and that was interesting to play, because as Zaza I was trained to walk and dance in high heels, and then all of a sudden you have to play someone who's really feeling awkward in it. And there was also this season, so there were a couple of really interesting roles at the same time happening this season. And now, I'm still doing these two massive roles that also, I mean, you need always some time to recover from that,
especially dancing in heels. Yes,
dancing in heels. But also Mass, always after a performance like this, you're like, it's always a trip. Yeah.
Incredible. That's great. It's really exciting, though. I mean, do you have any like evenings of cabaret or anything that you do?
I do sometimes also in Berlin. I sing with my own songs. So that's my third album is actually I started to write music. So the first one was the Sondheim. The second one was a jazz album with a jazz band that I got to know over production. And the third one, because I always the musicians that I worked with said you have to write your own music, you have to and also in your mother language in German, but nothing came out. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, I wrote a whole album with the lyrics and the music, and we produced it beautifully here in Berlin with a big band and a string quartet. And these songs are, of course, very personal to me, very, very special. And sometimes I can sing them in concerts or in like the little cabaret acts here in Berlin. And it's always interesting to do that, and when people don't know you as a solo artist or with your own music, how they react to your lyrics and how if they get it and how the response is. And I love that next to the musical stage to do concerts, to have this connection with the audience.
And it's one of the great things about Berlin. We still have cabarets.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of
nice
going
venues
on.
And everything.
Yeah,
it's great.
Where you can also try new stuff and where you can, yeah.
Have you ever performed at Sally Bowles?
No.
It's right around the corner.
That is a bar, right?
Yeah,
around the corner. They also, I heard they have a piano wing, and sometimes they do little
cabarets there.
evenings. Yeah.
So your albums, are they all available in various platforms?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people can look and find you up.
Spotify and everywhere.
Great, super.
That's a good thing when you produce albums. In the past, you always had to. I mean, you also know it. You had to do all the actual CD with a booklet, and which is also nice that you have something in hand, but it's very expensive. And nowadays, for free artists, it's really easy to produce music and to get like a, what do you call it?
Exposure.
And to put it on all these platforms to have it online.
I do that, and I always produce maybe 200 or so hard copies just to have.
Yeah.
But now no one buys CDs.
It's
anymore.
good when you do concerts. Then people then want to have something in hands also. If they want an autograph or something, it's nice to have an actual CD, and then people buy more CDs. But if you give someone a CD nowadays, they'll say, "Where should I play it?" it's like everything is online. It has
it's great.
Downsides and upsides. Yeah.
So Sam, thank you so much for coming, Samuel. Can I call you Sam?
Yes, of course.
No, I didn't know. Some people don't like Samuel.
No, I got the same Sam when I was here in university because it was directed by Americans, and the first thing they said, "Can we call you Sam?" And it's most of my Berlin friends call me Sam. It's from that time that it stayed.
Well, it's been great having you.
Thanks for having me.
And it's been great getting to know you over the years and watching you, grow as an artist. And it's just been wonderful. And I really am grateful that you were able to come and sit here with me on this gray winter afternoon in Berlin.
In front of the famous piano wing. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Awesome. Thank you all for listening, and be sure you visit Samuel's, how do you spell your last name?
Schuermann.
Spell it for them, please.
Samuel Schuermann.
Spell it.
Schuermann.
Okay, so you can look him up on Spotify and everything.
Yes.
And look forward to welcome you to the next Berlin Conversations. Thank you so much, and have a great day.